Welcome. I'm Tom Denkenwolf, and I'm delighted to be your worship leader this morning. One thing I love about this congregation is the positive energy I feel as this sanctuary seems to be getting fuller and fuller with each passing week. I want to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time. Rather than gathering because we all have the same beliefs, we are an intentional community gathered around our shared promise to support each other's individual spiritual journeys. We're also intentional about bringing all ages together. In today's world, that often doesn't happen. But we think it's important to have an adult friend ask a child or youth how they did on that science test they were worried about. And a 30-year-old and a 70-year-old chat about life while having coffee after the service. If you're here in person, I hope you'll stay and chat after the service and tell us a little bit about you. If you're joining us online, please fill out a visitor form in the link. Please fill out a visitor form in the link in the description. We'd love to connect with you. I have a few announcements to share. After the service at 12:15 in the Emerson Room, Reverend David will host a conversation on the future of the music program. He'll share the vision he and Deborah developed this winter, give an update on the hiring process for a new music director, and most importantly, get your thoughts and hopes and feedback for the future of music here. Next Sunday, the 16th at 4:30, the Racial Justice Team will host a conversation on systemic racism. Sign up after the service at the table out front. In 2 weeks, after the Earth Day service on April 23rd, the Climate Action Ministry is hosting a vegetarian luncheon, and you are all warmly invited. If you would like to provide a dish or to help out, please sign up at the Climate Action table during coffee hour. And finally, we have this announcement to share from the pledge drive. Yes, maybe. There we go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm back one last time to wrap up this year's pledge drive with a final message. I can't thank you all enough for answering the call to support our congregation as we move into the future. Your gifts will make it possible for us to support our staff, reinvigorate our religious education program, and imagine what the future of our building might hold. For all you numbers people, and I know there are a few numbers people out there, here's where we stand. 90% of our pledge cards have been returned. That also includes 11 brand new pledges for this year. We have achieved 90% of our goal for this pledge drive. Now, we started out with a target of raising $412,000. I know, that sounds like a huge number. And as I said, we currently stand at about 90% of that, which means that we have received committed pledges totaling about $370,000, which is also a huge number. And it's just about the same number that we had in committed pledges last year. With the current economic climate, we certainly consider this a great success. Now, it's possible that we'll still receive a few more pledges this week, which will only strengthen our position. And, of course, if anyone is having second thoughts and wants to increase their pledge just a smidge, let me know. I am so excited for next year and can't wait to see what surprises it holds. Charmin and I both extend our gratitude to everyone for coming together so we can make it happen. Thanks.
It has been, I don't know about you, it has been a full, busy week. On Thursday, we hosted a Passover Seder for 44 people. On Friday, we spent the evening playing card games at our potluck community night, and then held a service of lament here in Near Darkness. Yesterday, our guest artist, Stephanie Heidemann, led a yoga for the voice workshop for more than a dozen of us. And just this morning, before you arrived, the kids had an Easter egg hunt between the services. It was extremely charming if you missed it. It's delightful. But in all of those things, on a busy week like this, the thing that I take away, the thing that to me feels the best, is not just the number of bodies in the house. It's how we do it. It's the way newcomers at that Passover Seder just got right in and among with everyone else. It's the way that we clean the dishes after the potluck. That those things aren't, they are sort of drudgery. I'm not going to say that cleaning, I'm not to the point where cleaning dishes is a spiritual practice. Some of you maybe. But it's the way that we create this community for each other by everyone pitching in. The way people showed up early Friday afternoon to get candy and the Easter eggs and hide them during the 9 o'clock service and on and on. It gives me great hope. These words are from my friend and colleague, the Reverend Julia Hamilton, who writes this. Spirit of hope. Spirit of hope, settle into our bones on this Easter morning. Remind us once again that the dawn light is never a gamble. And if there ever was a sure bet, it's the sunrise. Even stones crumble, grief shifts and changes, and death is a mystery that is certain, but not solid, but hope. Hope is like the sunrise. Hope is like the sunrise, eternal and bone-bred within us. We are creatures built by sunshine and cannot carve that hope out of our bones if we tried. And yet people have tried and do try to entomb the light, try to seal off the morning. Emperors and kings, priests and patriarchs have brought down death, certain, but not solid, on any who points out a new dawn. In these fearful moments, we can be forgiven if we stumble and doubt and deny. But still the sun rises and calls her children, calls us into bloom. Always, she says, always I will return. So don't despair. All is not lost. And the small ways of petty tyrants never win in the end. So place your money on the sunrise. Who are we to bet against hope? Who are we to bet against glory? Friends, will you rise in body or spirit? Let's sing that out.
The chalice is the symbol of our liberal faith. It is the warmth of compassion, the fire of justice, a lamp on the spiritual path. If you're joining us online and have a chalice nearby, please get ready to light it with us. Instead of one person predictably lighting our chalice today, we're all going to do it together. Here's how it works. Find a person next to you. You'll each have 1 minute to answer the question I'm going to pose, 1 minute to practice sustained, compassionate attention. Folks online, if you'd like to post in the chat, it is not saved, so whatever you write here will only be visible during the service. First question, what brought you here this morning? I'm going to put 60 seconds on my phone. For the first person to answer, and then I'll let you know when to switch. Go. Switch persons. Bring it in. Thank you. One more question. You'll each have 1 minute for this question as well. So the second question is, what in your life is just beginning? You'll each have 1 minute to answer, and I'll let you know when to switch. Proceed. Thank you. Bring it back in. Thank you for your sharing this morning. In the spirit of unexpected delight and our connections to each other, I light the chalice this morning. To covenant is to commit, that even if we fall short of our aspirations, we will not let go of them. We will never cease from trying again to live them out. In that spirit, gathered in person and online, will you all together speak our covenant aloud? We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
continue with me in this time for prayer and meditation? It's time we make to let ourselves catch up with ourselves. Let's begin with a breath all together. And another slower, deeper that lets you arrive in this moment. These words for meditation by the Reverend Kendall Gibbons called The Humanist Speaks of Easter. And I invite you to receive them, to listen for where they land, where they resonate, to listen for what in your own life is true in them or is remembered from them. There are only two things we know for sure. One, they stashed Jesus' body in a tomb temporarily until they could get a chance to bury it properly. And when they came back, the tomb was empty. Make of that what you will. There are many possible explanations, some more likely than others. I don't believe that Jesus came back from the dead. Neither did Martin or Malcolm or Viola Liuzzo. Neither will Daniel Aston, Raymond Green Vance, Kelly Loving, Ashley Paw, Derek Rump murdered in Club Q. Neither will any who rest in the graveyards of Ukraine that once were farm fields. I don't believe that the crucifixion is a story with a happy ending, or that it was a one-time event. It happens over and over as the human journey unfolds. It happens to us and to the people we love. It happens to the righteous and the innocent. Crucifixion happens, and it feels like the end of the world every time. It feels like nothing could matter anymore, ever. And then, inevitably and miraculously, something happens next. Something happens. Of course it does. Because the world hasn't ended yet. It's not always an empty tomb. How trite would that become? Mostly the beloved bodies just lie right there, but something happens. And whether we want it or not, a new chapter begins. Maybe the sun comes up, or the lilies do. Spring rolls around. That happens. Or memories come, or someone needs you. You eat food, that happens. You walk down the road, share a recollection. Life happens, keeps happening. And the dead don't rise, but we do. One day it happens, you take a breath, and it doesn't hurt to breathe. You start to see people again, really see them. Hope rises. Community rises. You rise. We rise. Life rises. Not because death isn't real. Not because crucifixion is just pretend, but because something else is just as real, maybe more real. Something happens next. That is the other thing we know for sure. Life rises. Outrage rises. Love rises. Faith rises. Tears rise. Hope rises. And this I do believe. We'll be together in silence for a few moments. The work we do in ritual is an outward expression of an inward movement that sometimes unfolds over years. In moving our bodies, in placing stones, as we'll do in just a moment, to symbolize our joys and our sorrows, we're gardeners of our souls, of our hearts. We're tending and training and teaching ourselves, practicing, recognizing that hope and suffering are woven daily into our living. We are becoming a people who recognize the beauty and the tragedy which suffuse this world. And so for you gathered in person, I invite you to come forward when the music begins in just a moment. Come forward as you feel moved and take a stone, silently feel its weight. Feel your body slowly warm it. And hold that stone in emblem of your thankfulness and your worries, both. And then place it into the sacred earth in the company of all the joys and sorrows of this gathered community made visible, each to each. This morning we are joyful with Gary and Babs Hurley. Their youngest grandson, Sylvan, turns 1 year old on Wednesday. And we hold in love and solidarity every queer and trans and genderqueer person whose not just rights are under attack in this moment, but whose living in the world so many are trying to erase. We see you and we love you and you matter. For all our hopes and griefs, we hold this compassionate space with love. And please come forward as you're moved. I love so much the way the harmony in the middle of that pulls and stretches, the way we sing the words, all is well, and we don't mean by those words that everything is going to be fine and great and happy and fun, that our tears become the soil we till, and all is well. Here's the thing, I'm not really interested in the fact of the resurrection. I don't believe in the fact of the resurrection. But I know what the truth of resurrection looks like in our living. I know it firsthand in my own life. I've seen it in others. I've heard your stories, too, of what it is to come back to life again. The Greek Solon says that myth is not about something that never happened. Myth is about something that is happening over and over and over again. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't return to the Easter story for the historical account and analysis it provides. We return to it, and we need to keep returning to it because the heart story it tells is a heart story that we've lived too. In the Gospel of Mark, in the end, 3 women go to the tomb and find it empty. Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, and Salome go to the tomb to anoint Jesus' body and find there not the body of their teacher and beloved, but instead a young man in white robes who says, Jesus is risen, and the 3 women go out trembling and bewildered. I don't believe in the fact of it, but I know the truth of what that is like. I know that in every memorial service I've ever led, in every funeral I've ever attended, I know what it is to see people go out trembling and bewildered, living exactly at the ending and the beginning. I don't believe in the fact of it, but I know the truth of what that's like. I know what that feeling is. You know it too. A hope that walks hand in hand with grief. A hope that has passed through despair, that knows what despair is. In the Christian tradition, that hope comes on Easter, and it's a hope which has passed through the whole week of Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem to teach, to proclaim the good news that a community of radical justice and equality, a community of inclusion, is possible right here and now. And it doesn't have to wait, and there is no one who is going to make it real except us to each other, for each other, and who is betrayed and executed by the state, and then whose community goes onward, bearing his hope, trembling and bewildered, grieving, while at the same time knowing this is not the end. You know what it is when endings and beginnings and the busy middle of living are all tangled together. I remember when my first child was not even 2 days old, holding them in the hospital, weeping, with tears running down my face. And I still tear up when I think of it, because in only 18 years they would be leaving. Beginnings and endings and busy middles all at once. The poet Billy Collins writes a piece called Aristotle, because Aristotle had this notion that all drama, all story unfolds in 3 parts, beginning, middle, end. And so this poem offers a catalog of beginnings and middles and endings, but resting on the page in front of me All three of those are happening at once. And I could take them in any order, or we could read them all simultaneously, end and beginning and middle all together. The poet writes this called Aristotle. This is the beginning. Almost anything can happen. This is where you find the creation of light, a fish wriggling onto land, the first word of Paradise Lost on an empty page. Think of an egg, the letter A, a woman ironing on a bare stage as the heavy curtain rises. This is the very beginning. The first-person narrator introduces himself, tells us about his lineage. The mezzo-soprano stands in the wings. Here, the climbers are studying a map or pulling on their long woolen socks. This is early on, years before the ark, dawn. The profile of an animal is being smeared on the wall of a cave, and you have not yet learned to crawl. This is the opening, the gambit upon moving forward an inch. This is your first night with her. Your first night without her. This is the part where the wheels begin to turn, where the elevator begins its ascent before the doors lurch apart. This is the middle. And things have had time to get complicated, messy, really. Nothing simple anymore. Cities have sprouted up along the rivers, teeming with people at cross purposes, a million schemes, a million wild looks. Disappointment unshoulders his knapsack here and pitches his ragged tent. This is the sticky part, where the plot congeals, where the action suddenly reverses or swerves off in an outrageous direction. Here the narrator devotes a long paragraph to why Miriam does not want Edward's child. And someone hides a letter under a pillow. Here, the aria rises to a pitch, a song, our song of betrayal, salted with revenge. And the climbing party is stuck on a ledge halfway up the mountain. This is the bridge, the painful modulation. This is the thick of things. So much is crowded into the middle. The guitars of Spain, piles of ripe avocados, Russian uniforms, noisy parties, lakeside kisses, arguments heard through a wall. Too much to name, too much to think about. And this is the end. The car running out of road. The river losing its name in an ocean. The long nose of the photographed horse touching the white electronic line. This is the colophon, the last elephant in the parade, the empty wheelchair, and pigeons floating down in the evening. Here the stage is littered with bodies. And the narrator leads the character to their cells, and the climbers are in their graves. It is me hitting the period and you closing the book. It is Sylvia Plath in the kitchen and St. Clement with an anchor around his neck. This is the final bit, thinning away to nothing. This is the end. According to Aristotle, what we have all been waiting for. What everything comes down to. The destination we cannot help imagining. A streak of light in the sky, a hat on a peg, and outside the cabin falling leaves. This is the beginning, and this is the middle, and this is the end, and this is the beginning, and this is the middle. In the oldest versions of the Gospel of Mark, that story runs out of road at the empty tomb of Jesus. Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, and Salome go to the tomb to anoint Jesus' body and find not the body of their teacher and beloved, but instead a young man in white robes who says Jesus is risen. The three women go out trembling and bewildered. And then that's the end. It ends. It just ends right there, trembling and bewildered. They go from that place together into an unknown and unknowable future. Cut to black, roll credits. But they don't leave the tomb empty-handed. They leave, I think, in that very earliest telling, they leave carrying the same kind of hope that we carry too, that this moment, that this ending is not the end. Carrying a hope which says it is their work, it is their beginning to make real the community of radical acceptance and belonging, to make real the community of justice that their beloved and teacher spoke about, that they practiced, that they experienced, that they were rehearsing for. The hope and despair which says there is no one else coming to do this for us. And their hope for the future, like ours, must wear scars and always go onward gently with compassion for each other and for ourselves into an unknown and unknowable future together. It is a homecoming and a hope coming. It is an ending and a beginning and a middle and an end and a beginning. Amen. We rise in body or spirit. Let's join in singing.
This month, our Share Our Plate offering goes to the Colorado Agrivoltaic Learning Center at Jack's Solar Garden. Last week, Byron Komnick, the owner of Jack's Solar Garden and the founder and director of the Agrivoltaic Learning Center, gave an overview of their work. Today, we have a short animated film that shows how the panels work to provide different microclimates for the plants grown underneath. The center is partnering with Solar City Farms, the University of Arizona, and CSU to study these microclimates, determine which plants thrive in each, and how productivity can be maximized. If we can play
The space between rows of solar panels is divided into 3 crop beds, each with a different microclimate. Row A gets morning sun and afternoon shade. The plants that prefer cooler temperatures and more shade in hot climates grow well in this environment. Row B receives the most sunlight throughout the middle of the day. Sun-loving plants thrive here. Row C gets morning shade and afternoon sun when temperatures are higher. This is where to put your heat-tolerant plants. Solar panels also alter the soil moisture by redirecting summer rains and morning dew, keeping the moisture content in the topsoil highest in rows A and C, while row B exhibits similar levels to open lands. The shade from solar panels slows the evaporation rate of moisture from the soil, meaning that less irrigation is needed for crops, preserving our precious water resources. Single-axis tracking panels cycle sun and shade over the plants, reducing their heat and water stresses. At the same time, the plants release moisture from their leaves, cooling the panels and enabling them to work more efficiently. When we pair solar panels with the right plants, both enjoy a cooler environment and higher production. This is agrivoltaics.
I invite you to give as generously as you are able. For those online, you can use the QR code or find a link in the video description. For those gathered in person, you can scan the QR code or make a donation as the ushers now pass the baskets. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community and the wider world.
Thank you for your generosity. I so appreciate how in our Share the Plate program, we just make concrete and real local efforts to change the community for the better. I'm grateful for that generosity. As a congregation at our annual meeting each year at the end of May, we nominate and choose which groups to share our plate with through the year. And as that comes up in just a little bit more than a month now, I hope you might keep in mind organizations, local nonprofits in the area who are doing tangible work to make this community a better, a more equitable more just place and put in those names for nomination. Friends, our service comes to a close and our service in the world begins again. We go out from this house a community of people in the midst of beginnings and middles and endings all at once, carrying out a hope which is not naive and is not cynical, that there is a better world and we can be a part of making it. Go in peace and amen. Will you rise in body or in spirit? We'll close in song.